Welcome. Thank you. Welcome to the National Opera Center. My name is Mark Skorka. I'm president of Opera America, and I'm delighted to welcome you all here to our conversation with Susan Graham. Many of you may know that we just celebrated the first anniversary of the National Opera Center on September 28th. And in the very first year, our startup year, we welcomed 30,195 visitors to the Opera Center. They were here for auditions, rehearsals, readings, recording sessions, and public programs like this one. So welcome, and we're delighted that the community center feel that we wanted to create here has been achieved so wonderfully in our first year. The conversation series that we have are discussions with great artists working in the field. We all gain from these discussions, but it's especially valuable for young artists to learn from the masters about the early parts of career development, role preparation, sustaining a career in opera. So these conversations, again, that we all enjoy are really valuable for the young singer. We live stream these to a global audience. We have 3 cameras shooting this tonight. We also record it and put it on our YouTube channel, so that way it is a permanent resource for aspiring artists when they come to the Opera America website. Our next conversation is on March 20th with Larry Brownlee. And between now and then, there are a number of other public programs, so please stay tuned to our emails with information about those programs. She has been called the America's favorite soprano. Her recital repertoire is so broad that 14 composers are represented on her most recent CD. In 2001, she won the Chevalier of the Order of Arts and Letters in France. In 2004, she was Vocalist of the Year for Musical America. In 2004, too, she won a Grammy Award. In 2005, the Opera News Award. And certainly, the pinnacle of her career to date is being our conversationalist this evening here at the National Opera Center. So please welcome the great Susan Graham. Such a pleasure to see you. Susan, as you know, just knocked the socks off of everyone at the Tucker Gala on Sunday. She did a gala last night for WQXR. She's here tonight, and I said, "Are you in New York?" She said, "I'm in New York for a month, and I'm not doing anything, except this is my 3rd event in a row." So Susan is just one of the truly generous spirits in our business.
Thank you.
I always like to start off with the same question. Who brought you to your first opera?
My high school voice teacher.
So in...
Can y'all hear me? Okay. My high school voice teacher in Midland, Texas. Whose phone? You have to buy everyone coffee. That's how it works in opera rehearsals.
I know.
It was in Midland, Texas, and I had never seen an opera live before. In fact, in my house, opera was the thing you changed the channel from on the television. But it was Così fan tutte, and it was at the my high school auditorium, but it was the touring leg of the Houston Grand Opera, so it was Texas Opera Theater.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they came through my town, and it was Così fan tutte, and Sunny Joy Langton was singing Despina. And I remember seeing her, and I was already a student of piano, and I played a lot of Mozart. And I thought, it's Mozart, it's acting, it's comedy, and she gets to drink hot chocolate. I want to do that. Now, I still haven't sung Despina, but, you know, it could happen.
It could happen. So had you identified in high school at that point that you had a vocal talent, or were you still just a pianist and hadn't yet discovered a voice?
I think that was the year, that was probably my senior year. So that was, I think I had just sung Maria in The Sound of Music. So
in the high school musical?
Oh, yes, in the high school musical. And so the drama theatrical bug had started to nibble on me a little bit, because as I said, I'd been a pianist for a long time. And I'd always done vocal competitions as well, though, because, you know, in Texas, there's a competition for everything. And if you can do anything halfway well, somebody's going to throw you in a contest for it. So, yeah, I did Beethoven piano sonata competitions and voice competitions, and down the road they had a chili cook-off and a rattlesnake roundup. So I didn't do either one of those.
But you still play.
Yet.
You accompanied yourself last night. So you still keep up your piano, or?
I do. That's a funny story. I've always, you know, when I was in college, I had a lot of boyfriends who were baritones. And so I'm really good at playing the baritone rep. I used to play for their voice lessons, and I even played a couple of junior recitals, you know, so I was pretty into the whole piano thing, as well as being a voice major. But last year, I did this French duet tour with Renee Fleming. And we were doing, you know, it was a whole concert of French duets with little solo groups here and there. And as encores, we were each going to sing some solos, and then we had a couple of duet encores too. So the pianist was Brad Moore. So one day, Renee and we took a break from rehearsal before the first concert, and I was going to do La Vie en Rose as an encore with Brad playing. And they went out to get coffee, and I stayed back to practice some stuff, and they came back, and I was playing it and singing it. And Renee walked in the room, and she said, "What?" And I said, "Dude, you've known me for 25 years. You know I can play the piano." And she said, "Well, I know you play the piano, but I didn't know you played like that." She said, "You've got to do that. You've got to do that." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She says, "In the concert, you've got to play for yourself." I said, "Oh, no, I can't do that. I haven't played in front of people in 30 years." But she talked me into it, and by the end of the tour, that was my favorite moment.
Oh, how wonderful. Now, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I'm curious, in your role preparation, if you're taking on a new role, do you sit down at the piano and work through the score?
Absolutely. Do you know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars I've saved on coaches over the years? Not that I don't still employ coaches, because they're very valuable, but the preparation, the preliminary part, oh yeah, I sit down, I play through the whole score before I even open my mouth. Yeah.
And begin just getting the musical vocabulary, the musical language of that opera into you.
And as a result, I'm one of those people for whom the music goes in very quickly and the words take forever.
And I was going to ask you about that. So when you're learning a new role, the music, the melodies, that's in you first, and then the words come in?
Yes, yeah. And I was, you know, I was always that kid in music history class when they played Drop the Needle, you know. I could hum the whole symphony, but I couldn't name it. Bad.
You know, as I said in the introduction, we focus in these conversations some about career development as young artists will watch this interview. And here you were born in New Mexico, but brought up in Texas. You went to college in Texas. And then you came to New York to MSM. That was quite a dramatic change. Had you been to New York before? Was that your first time?
I had. No, a couple of my friends from Texas Tech had moved up here. And I came up here on spring break, you know, to visit as soon as I knew anyone who lived in New York. You know, because I like to say that I had had every singing job there was to have in Lubbock, Texas twice. So it was time, you know, New York was calling me. And I remember when I was 21, I went home from my junior year in college, and I said to my parents, you know, I think I'm going to go to New York next year. And they went, yeah, no, you're not going to New York. At 21, I was far too young. I mean, I would have still, you would have found me right now wandering in Upper Manhattan going, where's my apartment? You know, if I had come here at that early age. So they were very wise, and I stayed in Texas, and I got a master's degree at Texas Tech as well.
Okay, I didn't realize
so
that.
I was 25 before I moved up here.
And the master's in music as well, in voice?
Oh yeah, I've got 1,000 of them.
Well, the honorary doctorates are still to come.
Well, I got a master's when I came up here to Manhattan School of Music too, you know, because I thought, and I think I wasn't wrong for my personal case. I was not ready to go anywhere where I didn't have a niche to fit into. You know, I was 25, I was from Texas, I had been to New York a couple of times, but I was nowhere near ready to hit the audition scene. So at 25, I enrolled in Manhattan School of Music as an artist diploma candidate. And then after the first year, my advisor said to me, well, you know, I'm looking at your papers and you actually have enough credits, minus you could just take one more class and you'd have another master's. I said, okay, sure. You know, and that meant that I had to be in a couple more performances and give a recital, and I thought, what's wrong with that?
When I read your biography and we hear about your Met debut in 1991, and that's only a few years after you went to MSM, London in 1994, I'm curious about those years at MSM and just beyond, did you do summer young artist programs?
Oh, yes.
Where?
Well, let me backtrack a minute.
Okay.
I went to Manhattan School of Music in order mainly, well, not only to have a reason to come to New York, but also to win the favor of John Crosby, who was the founder of the Santa Fe Opera, and at that time was still running the Santa Fe Opera. Because where I come from, Santa Fe Opera was the thing you want to go do. You know, it was the biggest thing in my vicinity. And some of my friends had been Santa Fe Opera apprentices, and I thought, that's what I want to do. But my teachers in Texas would never put me up for it. Because at that time, they didn't think I was ready, and I probably wasn't. I was a budding mezzo, you know. By the way, I've not been, at the risk of offending my soprano friends, I have not been called America's favorite soprano, as you said at the beginning. Yes, you did. I was back there going, Renee's gonna kill me. No, America's favorite mezzo. Joyce is gonna kill me. But that's an old title, so you know there are many favorite mezzos in our midst.
Well, not in this room, for sure.
Well, you never know. Anyway, I digress. So I went to Manhattan School of Music so that John Crosby would see me and love me and ask me to be an apprentice.
Was he president of MSM
at
the time?
He was president of MSM at the time. So I came up here and I did everything I could in the first year. And then I auditioned for the Santa Fe Opera Apprentice Program and I was rejected. And I went, ooh, that plan didn't work. I lived in Texas and went to New York to come back to New Mexico. Anyway, the second year I thought, I'm gonna get it this time. And I did everything at Manhattan School of Music. And actually, I was the lead in the opera at Manhattan School of Music. And I auditioned again for the Santa Fe Opera Apprentice Program. And I didn't get in. And I thought, something's terribly wrong here. Since then, I've been back hundreds of times doing leading roles.
there is a life lesson here.
Yes, I have forgiven them. I think maybe that's why they keep inviting me back, to make up for those 2 years that I didn't get in as an apprentice. No. I always tell the apprentices that every summer in Santa Fe. I always say, so you're ahead of me, when I was your age. You're ahead of the game. No, I auditioned I also auditioned for Wolf Trap. Ay, caramba! Sorry. There's no place to put this. I have no pockets. I had it in here earlier, but they thought that wasn't seemly. So, okay, sorry about that.
The light on it was glowing through the
Yeah,
dress.
it looked
It looked a little bionic.
I told you I had no filters anymore.
That's great.
Where was I?
So
Yes, so Merrill. Anyway, I ended up going to Merrill after I graduated from Manhattan School of Music, and that was a life changer for me. It was the perfect place for me, and I got a lot of instruction, and I got to participate in some operas, and it was really a big catalyst for me. I won, back then they had the competition sort of talent show at the end of the summer, and I won the first prize, the grand finale prize at Merrill, which sort of was shocking. I remember standing on that stage and they read off 4th place and 3rd place and 2nd place and 1st place. And I said, well, the best people have already won prizes. Who's gonna win the top prize? And then they called out my name and I couldn't believe it. And so that was sort of a little light went off for me in that moment, thinking, this might actually work. Perhaps this career thing will work out. And then I came back to New York after that. The first time in, let's see, 12 and 7 is 19 and 2 more, 21 years that I hadn't been in school, that I hadn't started school in September. 21 years. I should have been a lawyer or a doctor.
You came back here not having any work. You'd finished Merrill.
That's right.
And
I came back here. I sang with the New York choral artists. And those pickup choruses that sing behind the New York Philharmonic and Carnegie Hall and all that stuff. I was one of those people. I had every church and synagogue job that you could have. I think I still have the smell of incense in my from being in balconies and going out to synagogues and in Flushing and all. I mean, we went all over the place. That's what young singers
absolutely
did and maybe still do. But the summer when I was in Merrill, actually the spring before that, when I was doing Cherubin at Manhattan School of Music, I got the attention of some Columbia Artist Management. And they talked to me and they said, go out to Merrill, tune your skills, hone your skills, and we'll talk in the fall. And while I was in Merrill, Betsy Crittenden sent me a message and said, you know, Spate Jenkins is looking for a carabino. Why don't you take a plane up to Seattle this weekend and audition for carabino? And I said, oh my gosh. And I was, you know, all of my friends in Merrill hated me because they saw that pink slip in my little mailbox from Cammie. And they said, oh, a manager called her. They were, you know, so they were giving me grief about that. But anyway, so I flew up to Seattle and I auditioned for carabino, and I didn't get carabino, but he asked me, he said, now I do my Spate Jenkins imitation. Do y'all know Spate Jenkins? Susan, do you that carabino's good, but do you happen to have the Stefano aria from Romeo and Juliet? And I said, yeah, I've got that one. And he said, well, I think I'd like to hear that. And I said, okay. So I sang that, and he gave me the job of Stefano. So that was my first contracted job, and it was with the Seattle Opera.
How wonderful. Now,
and then I got management when I came back to New York, so then they started sending me out on, you know, 5 auditions a week.
and it was a year before the contract started happening and you were busy as a soloist?
I was not. I was busy as an auditionist. And members of very elite church quartets.
That moment between conservatory and career is a really tough time.
Yeah, it is.
And how did you keep your spirits up with that? You just sort of the unsinkable Molly Brown?
There's not much to be depressed about when you're, 27 years old and single and living in New York City. And, it was fun. There's a lot of fun to be had in New York City, know. And I was from Texas, and I'd been, like I said, I've been in school for 21 years. So, yeah, I didn't have much homework to do anymore. So I wasn't a crazy party person. I've never been, quite out of control in that manner. But I had a lot of friends, and we just sort of enjoyed, being here.
Then began your entire first career phase as a pants roll specialist.
Oh, yes.
So Stefano and Cherubino and so many others.
Well, that first year also when I was auditioning was also when I won the Met Award, the Met Council Awards. Okay. So that was another, little boost. And
for sure.
Competitions. I was doing a lot of competitions that year. So auditions, singing gigs, around town, local singing gigs, all the competitions, which sort of helped pay the rent in those years, And so everything was certainly bubbling up during that year. So I wasn't just going out to area and all those ancient discos that.
But of course, the input that you were getting was really positive. I mean, you were getting a lot of positive indication that this was going to happen.
Yeah. And this was in. Okay, now we're going to talk years. This was in 87, 88. And so if I got any jobs from those auditions, they were booking for 89, 90, So everything was sort of happening, the auditions, they happened a couple of years hence.
Yeah. Your repertoire is really vast. I mean, from Monteverdi to John Harbison or Domenico Argento, by way of French repertoire, pants rolls, Mozart. Is there a strategy? Is it you sing what is interesting to you? Do you sing different things to complement one another within a year for your own vocal health or artistic health?
Well, it varies. In the arc of a career, those decisions are answered with different criteria. In the beginning, you say yes to what is offered. Right.
The strategy is yes.
Yeah, the strategy is, okay, when would you like me? And in the beginning, it's funny, when I was younger, as a young lyric mezzo, I got offered a lot of pants parts, obviously. I got offered a lot of Rossini. And it was assumed that as a young lyric mezzo, you sing Rossini. And I could do it. I didn't love it, though. And it was, for me, too many notes, and but my voice has always had that flexibility. I could do it. And I sang one Rosina, and it was in Edmonton, Canada. And it was so cold, I think my shivering is what made the color. Oh, it's freezing, I remember that. But I thought, you know, this was at a time when Cecilia Bartoli was coming on the scene and blowing everybody's socks off. Jennifer Larmore, Suzanne Menser, I mean, all these girls who were doing Rossini and loving it. And I thought, please be my guest. You can have it. And I really took the course of Massenet, Charlotte, Cherubin, Octavian into Strauss, composer. You know, I like white notes. Those are a lot of black notes in Rossini.
And Clemenza has a lot of black notes too.
It does, but it also has a lot of heft and a lot of drama. You know, Parto is not the whole role.
So the shape of your repertoire, in fact, decided by your personal preferences artistically?
Always. I've never said yes to a role I didn't love.
Didn't come to love or didn't love at the outset?
I've never said yes to a role I didn't like. By the end of it, I've always grown to love it. Yeah.
American works, because you really have your stamp on some very important American opera roles. And I assume that there is a different kind of satisfaction in singing work of a living composer, work that tells an American story, work in English. Do they figure prominently because of a connection you feel to those works?
Well, that's a really good question, because there are some pieces that I have been American contemporary, you know, new pieces, world premieres, that I have said no thank you to, because I couldn't connect with what was coming to me. You know, getting bits of the music, and I wanted to, but I just knew it wasn't me. And so I have passed on a few of those kinds of projects, which, you know, for ambition reasons, maybe I should have said yes to. But if my heart, I'm a very lead with the heart in those issues, and if I don't connect with it on a musical and sort of emotional and soulful level, I figure I can't bring my best to it.
Creating a role, not having recordings to listen to, or not having any comparisons to singers from the golden age.
It's great.
Is it very different to know that you're putting your imprint on this role for the first time?
Yeah, there's an awful lot of freedom in that, you know. Of course you can, you know, and plus with a living composer, you can't imagine what Jake Heggie and I went through with Dead Man Walking. I mean, it's a groundbreaking piece, and it was a life changer for all of us. And it was Jake's first opera. And that still is astonishing to me. So, and he'd written a lot of songs for me and a lot of other people with voices similar to mine. But we had to have a discussion about the tessitura of a mezzo-soprano. We need to bring it back down just a little bit. I need to find my larynx up there above my eyebrows. And he, you know, so it was a learning experience for both of us, because he knows that I have high notes, but I didn't want to live up there all the time. You have to, and then we can jump back up again. But yeah, little things like that, which you can speak to the composer.
Right.
Now, if I were around when Mozart was writing Idomeneo, I would have asked him to do that a couple of times in Idamante's opening aria, because that's what we call a frog strangler. But there are ways, you know, you learn technical ways around it. But
comedy. No, there isn't a lot.
I hate comedy.
As we saw in Grand Duchess this summer
Oh,
in Santa
dear.
Fe, which was just hilarious. It must come naturally to you because you are just naturally a funny person. But is there a special skill set in doing comedy that you don't get to practice very often in the opera repertoire?
Gosh, you know, I used to get in trouble because my Dorabella was basically a hybrid of Carol Burnett and Lucille Ball. Sometimes that works in a production and sometimes it doesn't. I think it's a matter of timing, and it's a matter of how much liberty you can take with, and how to turn a phrase, and how to wink at the audience, and how to let them in on the joke. And it's a desire to want to entertain, and a desire to want to connect.
Are rehearsals different with comedy because of the timing issue and the inflection issue?
Yes. The initial rehearsals. And then as you go on and you repeat it 700 times, it is so not funny anymore. And then we get in front of an audience, and suddenly it's all funny again. So it goes like that,
Yeah.
you know, the arc of funny. And Grand Duchess was a perfect example of that, because things that we stopped thinking were funny in rehearsals, we would just gloss right over. And then we'd get it in front of an audience, and the show would stop with people laughing. And we thought, oh, right. We have to take a beat for that. And then that informs, you know, that's why invited dress rehearsals are so important, because you get that audience reaction, especially in things that have dialogue and rely on the timing that we have to bring to it rather than the timing that the composer brings to the music.
And this year, a piece of musical theater.
Excuse me?
This year, Rodgers and Hammerstein in a piece of musical theater. Does that feel different, or does it feel like it's just part of what you do?
Ask me in July.
Have you sat down at the piano to play through it at all?
Not the whole thing. No, I've had my hands full, but did you mention that to the audience? Do they know what we're talking about?
I just said Rodgers and Hammerstein. They don't know the role.
Do you want to know a secret? A secret that's live webcast over the entire country? Well, don't tell anybody, but in June at the Châtelet, I'm doing The King and I. I'm doing Anna and The King and I. So that's really very exciting, and it's quite a departure.
And doing it in English in Paris.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Because the Châtelet has started doing a lot of revivals of great American musicals. Also, they've just finished a run of Sondheim, I think, or maybe they're still in the Sondheim.
I think they're still in it.
Cycle as well. So Rodgers and Hammerstein is going to be great fun, and it's the same director and choreographer that I worked with last summer for Grand Duchess.
Oh, great.
Lee Blakely is the director, and Peggy Hickey is the choreographer.
It's kind of funny that you're doing it in Paris because of your real affinity for the French musical literature.
Right.
And what is it about the French literature that appeals to you, or what is it about your voice that makes it so perfect for that literature?
I don't know. I think that a lot of the French composers, particularly in that sort of Romantic era, were writing for a kind of what they call the Falcone soprano, which is a mezzo that sort of sits here. It's not really a mezzo, but it's a soprano with a little more meat to it, but doesn't go super high. And that sort of has always described the weight of my voice. There's also a lyricism to it, and a sort of cut that's required for some of that music. And particularly in Berlioz, I mean, the Berlioz heroines are really good examples of that kind of Falcone soprano, because it's dramatic at the same time it's very lyric. Didon in Les Troyens is a perfect example. But the French music in general, I've just always been captivated by, even before I started singing, when I was playing the French piano music, just the harmonies, and I was in love with the unexpected, the surprises of Debussy at the piano. And then when I started studying singing, Debussy songs were some of my first favorites, Fauré, and they seemed so romantic and so elegant to say for a little girl living in Midland, Texas. The sound and the feel of the French language sort of elevated me somehow and turned on my fantasy imagination of very elegant faraway places, and those elegant faraway places always seem to have an Eiffel Tower on the horizon. So I think it was meant to be somehow. Had
you studied French, because you sing it so idiomatically? Had you studied French in high school?
No, I studied Latin.
And I love those Latin songs you do.
I know, thanks. They're big cornerstone of my repertoire. Domine Deus. No, sorry, Monty Python reference. I'm sorry. It came in handy in all those church jobs, though. I have to tell you.
Absolutely. How do you handle language? Because you do sing in different languages and sing so well in them. Have you spent time studying French and studying Italian?
Well, yes, in a word, of course. Yeah, I learned German in college at Texas Tech, and I do have to tell you that in my German class at Texas Tech, there were fellow students who spoke with very interesting Texas accents, and I heard more than once, "Ich bin ein Student, ich studiere Deutsch."
I get the picture.
Ich hasse Billy Bob.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, French I learned while working in France, really. I mean, I studied French when I was preparing all the things that, the French opera role that I did at Manhattan School of Music, had a great French diction coach there. And then I started singing French operas at the Met. Even the tiny roles that I was doing, I was coached by the magnificent Denise Massé, who's the French coach at the Met. And she's been with me on every French recording I've done, every new piece of French music I've done. I've had great coaches. Nico Castel coached me on my first Nuit d'étés. When I was younger, and so I've had really great coaches who have opened up a world of language to me that has to do with so much more than just how you pronounce the vowels. Right. I mean, that's the tip of the iceberg, and the rest of it is the language and the inflection and the many meanings of the text as well as the inflection and everything. It's and cultural, how it fits in, and musically how it fits in. It's fascinating to me. And French, really, I think the colors are so rich. Now, Italian, I studied in college, but I don't sing that much Italian music, Handel, Monteverdi, and Mozart, and I did Meg Page and Verdi's Falstaff. That's about the extent of my Verdi repertoire. But no, I did Tebaldo in Don Carlo.
Okay.
Il re! That was my aria. He's the page boy.
And beautifully enunciated and inflected right there.
Thank you very much.
And Susan said you would not be singing tonight, so we got some.
That's right.
We got some free singing. Let's talk about the song literature, because not many opera singers inhabit the recital stage as comfortably as you do.
I'm glad it
and
looks
maybe it's not
comfortable.
Do you find that as an artist, the song recital just adds to your repertoire, both musically and artistically?
Absolutely. It's not the easiest thing in the world to stand up in front of a bunch of people with nothing but a piano behind you and have to captivate them for 2 hours into a bunch of little tiny mini worlds. And there are a lot of words. Oh my, there are a lot of words. And no prop box, funnily enough. But it has so enriched the way that my brain processes music. And I was a real objector to it for a long time. And I kept saying, oh, no, I can't. And about 1995 or 6, my managers convinced me that, no, you can't just do opera, especially with a lyric voice like mine, which is not, one that raises the roof off the building. I have, and I do love the intimacy of that kind of, gourmet singing, I like to call it, and storytelling. And I like to communicate. So kicking and screaming, I got into the recital sort of genre. And plus it's something that's going to be with me when I am not singing so much opera anymore. The concert platform is a place that has grown to be very dear in my heart. I have gotten much more comfortable on the opera stage, on the concert stage, the recital stage. In fact, in the beginning, I remember when I started doing recitals, Dawn Upshaw was sort of breaking ground because she would come out and she would speak to the audience and she would tell stories about what she was doing and about the music. I was so blown away by that. And my manager said, oh, you have to come out and you have to talk. Do like Dawn does. Come out and talk to. I said, oh, I can't talk to the audience. I can barely stand up there and sing in front of them. I can't talk to the audience. And now, of course, if any of you have been to my recitals, you can't shut me up. They're like, stop talking. Would you sing already?
How do you select a program for a recital?
Well, that's very interesting. I have a genius collaborative partner called Malcolm Martineau. He has a brain that's an encyclopedia, and he knows the most obscure repertoire. We'll talk about a theme. For instance, the last recital program I did was, the working title was Good Girls and Bad Girls. And the first half we started with the Blessed Virgin's expostulation. Doesn't get much good girler than that. Yeah. And then we went on to do a group of mignon songs, and then there, Ophelia, sort of victimized characters who they were good girls, they didn't willingly do bad things. Then the second half, we started with Lady Macbeth. a song, not the operatic Lady Macbeth, but a Shena that was written by Joseph Horowitz.
Yep.
And then we went into some Poulenc, Fiancée pour rire, kind of little racier women, and then finished up with a group of cabaret songs that were kind of racier yet. And so we start with a germ of an idea, sort of a theme, and then Malcolm throws out ideas at me, and we go through them, and I think, and if I have a song like the Mignon songs, there were a few of them that I wanted to see if we could program in, and we just sort of work together. It's mostly him, though, I will say. Without reservation, it is mostly Malcolm.
Do you work with a stage director, friend who might help you think about how much you move on stage in recital or what you do? That's all just you?
That's just me. I mean, I've been on the stage once or twice. So, I'm getting pretty comfortable telling my stories, and I sort of know when I want to come forward and reach out to the audience a little more, and when to, bring you in.
How do you decide what to wear?
Oh my gosh, that's always This year, for that tour, I couldn't believe that I got down to about 2 weeks before the tour started, and I thought, gosh, what am I going to wear on this concert tour? Because, you're doing 8 cities, and I am not one who wants to bring a different gown for every concert. Sorry, you get the gown in Milwaukee, you get the gown in St. Paul. It's all the same, and everywhere in between. And so I went thematic. And I had 2 gowns for the concert, and the first one was white, and the second one was black. Virginal and racy, and not. And then the second one was one-shouldered and black, and yeah. So, and you can work the gown, you can play. I don't know. I'm shameless. I have a lot of fun with it. But I think it's part of the whole deal,
Because you are left alone. I mean, when you go and do an opera, they give you the costume, they tell you where to move,
yeah.
They give it all to you. And here, you have to make those decisions.
I'll tell you, much more difficult than deciding on that one was doing a duet recital with another singer. And Renee and I went back and forth, What are you going to wear? Well, I don't know. I think I should wear silver. Well, I wanted to wear silver. Okay, you wear gold. I'll wear silver. No, you wear red. Okay, It went crazy, but we had to get, 2 gowns. And of course, when you're singing with Renee, you've got to bring, 6 gowns because you never know. She's going to change 3 times during the concert. So I got to keep up. But we just had 2 gowns per concert. So we each changed at intermission. So not like we traded.
Which is kind of a funny thought.
That would have been funny. That would have been funny.
Would anyone notice?
The hemlines would have had the little...
And I wanted to ask you about your artistic relationship with Renee, because for a lot of years now, you've done operas together.
Yeah.
And what is it like to have a performing partner like that?
It's so much fun. I mean, we're sisters in this business, and so much so that when we met to rehearse for the Tucker Gala the other day, we did a duet together on the Tucker Gala, the Lakme duet. And when we met for the rehearsal, I just cut 6 inches off my hair, and she just lightened hers. So now we have exactly the same hair. It has come to that. If she were sitting here right now, actually hers is a little longer than mine now, but it's lighter, and so now we just looked at each other, we thought, really, we're becoming the same person.
Oh, that is so funny.
It's getting ridiculous. But we go back, 25 years? Because 1988 is when we met at the Met Finals. We both won that year. We both had on hideous cobalt blue dresses and hair this big. And that's when we met. And the year after that, we sang in Rusalka together in Seattle, and then we went, lots of Figaro's in Chicago, and of course, countless Rosenkavaliers all over the world. So, I remember she said famously in a New Yorker article, shortly after her divorce, and she said, "Yep, for the last 2 years, the only person I've kissed is Susan Graham."
That's wonderful.
It was a bad time for both of us, actually. Yeah.
But I assume, though, that in the rehearsal process, or even in performances, having someone who just knows your cues, who knows if you're
we read each
having
other's
phlegm,
lines
that
so
must
much.
be really comforting and helpful.
It is, and the hard part is not cracking up. Because because the worst time for both of us is lying in bed as the overture is going on at the beginning of Rosenkavalier and the curtain's down. And the overture tells quite a story between Octavian and the Marschallin. Go back and listen to it, and you'll see what I mean. So we're lying in the bed waiting for the curtain to go up because we know exactly what note the curtain's going to go up on. And she's telling me what her kids did at school that day, and who she saw. Oh, who I ran into. Oh, well, and we're gossiping. And the curtain goes up, and we've got to sort of be all over each other, But and in those recitals. On stage, we know when one or the other one is going to either make a wrong entrance or not going to make a right entrance. So we're kind of nudging and kind of, this is you. Oh gosh, because we can read each other's physicality and everything. And but I will say that the last performance of the last run of Rosenkavalier that we did together in 2010 was my last Octavian, and we knew it was my last Octavian, and that was my farewell to my favorite character. And the whole first act is about the Marschallin sending Octavian away, and they're saying goodbye to each other. We couldn't look at each other because she was singing "Heute oder morgen," today or tomorrow you're going to leave me, and I was weeping at her feet because as the character, but also. I knew this was the last one, and there's a moment at the end of that first act when she's going about her business and saying, oh, everything will be all right, and Octavian is just sort of staring out into space, thinking she's actually sending me away. What does this mean? And I tell you, the tears were real. We couldn't look at each other.
That's such an incredible story. What makes you decide to give up a role, to say goodbye to a role?
Age. And, Flicka once said to me, when you're old enough to be a grandmother, jumping out of a window is unseemly. Talking about Carabino. And I stopped singing Carabino when I couldn't fold up underneath the chair anymore. I mean, I'm just, there's a lot of me to fold up in my, it's just, and jumping out the window, I realized that I couldn't do it anymore without going, ugh, when I landed on the other side. I thought, stop. Actually, a lot of a role like that is physical concerns because Octavian, when I can't do Octavian the way that I'd want to, which is running across the stage and leaping up onto the bed from mid-stage and swashbuckling and everything, when I can't do that anymore with the kind of energy and freedom and abandon I want to, then I don't want to do it. I don't want to be an old Octavian who sort of shuffles across the floor.
Yeah, where the servants sort of help you down out.
Yeah, the servants are going, here, can we help you off the bed?
These
Thank
days,
you, dear.
These days, with the diminishment of the recording industry, a lot of artists are wonderful artists, but they don't have a whole library of recordings that they've made. You have a really
got in under the wire.
You have a really solid recording legacy.
Well,
what's it like having that recording legacy? Do you listen to them? Do you cringe? Do you think, that wasn't bad? What is it like having that legacy?
Usually the latter. I kind of go, that wasn't bad. Well, actually, if I have occasion to hear any of them, which I don't, sit home and eat bonbons and listen to my old recordings.
The Norma Desmond evenings.
Not yet. That could come. When I'm out on my farm surrounded by my cats, I'll be listening.
Right.
I think, gosh, that sounded so easy. That's what I think when I listen to some of those things. I think I marvel at that I sounded different than I sound now. It felt, listening to it, how as a singer you have empathy for how it feels when you hear someone singing, you can sort of feel it in your throat sometimes. And when I listen to young me, I think, gosh, that feels like so easy, and I'd have to work a lot harder to make that happen now. Now, some things I remember that I was working harder at then that come easier now. But usually it's the opposite.
And when you say, remembering how it felt at the time, I always marvel when there are interviews after a tennis match, and they ask a tennis player about the second point of the second game.
I do too.
And they remember, that's when you put a little topspin on it.
Yes.
Do you remember performances with that kind of specificity?
Absolutely not. I got to tell you, I don't even remember productions sometimes. I'll think, I will have to go back and try and remember. And when I was doing them, I would think, oh, this is great, I'll never forget this. But after 20 some odd years of doing it, something has to really trigger, oh my gosh, I remember, what conductor was that? And when you're doing it, it's your whole world. There's nothing outside that experience. But then lots of things come around and make it go into the misty background. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. There are some that I can remember with great clarity, and moments that I can remember with great clarity.
Because they were great successful moments, or are they panic moments?
Yes.
little
yes. One of the first great joyful moments that I can remember on stage at the Met was when I was covering Cherubino for Friedrich von Stade. I think it was probably her last run, and I was covering her. And 2 weeks prior to a particular performance in that March of that year, she said to me, Susie, I haven't told the management yet, but in 2 weeks, I'm going to have to skip a performance because her husband was having surgery. She said, I'm going to miss a performance, but I wanted to tell you so you can be ready and you can call your parents and have them come up from Texas and see you. I mean, I can cry right now just thinking about it. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And of course, I was scared to death because as a cover, I didn't get a lot of rehearsal, and I never had been on the set. And it was James Levine conducting, and it was Tom Hampson and Ferruccio Furlanetto and Dawn Upshaw, and I think Patricia Schumann, and all these amazing singers. And I was being thrown into it, and I remember they tossed me on the set a half hour before curtain and said, oh, this is the window you jump in, and this is the window you jump out, basically. Mm-hmm. And it's that old Pinnell production, remember?
Yep, I do.
And so I remember the opera starting, and I have no memory of the first act, but I do remember singing Voi che sapete to Patricia Schumann, but staring at Jimmy. So she was here, and I was singing Voi che sapete, and Jimmy was looking at me and conducting and going. Then you can fly. I mean, it is so that's one of the reasons we love Jimmy, because he makes you better than you think you are. It's amazing. It's so thrilling and encouraging. And so he knew I was petrified, and he just brought me right into it. And then I had a great time. And it was a very nice ovation after that. And I got a very nice curtain call. And then I got a lot more contracts from the Met after that.
Oh, how wonderful. What a great memory that is. One of my favorite old Saturday intermission questions, and I remember vividly there was a panel, and they had asked Leonie Rieseneck, one of my favorite singers, what role does she wish she had sung but never sang?
Oh.
And she said, Isolde. And I thought, oh my goodness, to have imagined a Leonie Rieseneck Isolde. Are there dream concerts still to give? Are there roles you thought, oh, I really would have loved to have sung that?
Well, I would have loved to have sung Tosca. However, Puccini didn't quite write it for my voice type, but I would love to, gosh, even saying it is just too terrifying, but I would love to sing Kundry. I would love to give that a go sometime. Never say never. I'm not, holding my breath for it, but it's something that's on my sort of wish list.
Musically, dramatically?
Yeah, I mean, it's a far cry from Cherubino, but yeah. Funny story. I was singing Meg Page in Salzburg with George Solti conducting, and we had a very interesting conversation one time when he said, "My dear, they've asked me to conduct a film of Parsifal, and I want you to sing Kundry." And I was, I think, 34 4 at the time. I thought, yeah, Meg Page to Kundry, that's not much of a leap. And I said, what you want, who's going to sing the part? I'll act it on film, but who's actually going to sing it? And he said, no, I want you to sing it. And I sort of, at that time, I kind of looked at him and I went, really? And he said, yes, oh, it's a small role, only 1 act. And he gave me the score, and just to get him to stop talking about it, I said, yes, maestro, I'll look at it. And of course, that did not happen. And I think they never made the film, but that was the first time that anybody had said that.
Planted the seed.
Yeah, planted the seed.
And I confess, in asking the question, I never thought I'd hear a Wagner title come from you.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, what did you think I would say?
I wasn't sure. I was open for anything. But Wagner surprises me. Wagner surprises me.
You know what I wish I could do more of is Handel, because I love those big heroic Handel roles. Xerxes, for instance. Yeah. I did it in Houston and San Francisco, and I'd love to bring it farther east.
I saw it in Houston. It was just wonderful.
It's a great opera. It is. Yeah. And there's some just amazing music in it. Ariodante as well, you know. That was a great one, too. I love doing those Handel parts. That's, not Rossini, but Handel.
Right.
It's a whole different animal.
It's a different kind of coloratura.
It's a different kind of coloratura.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we see here in front of us just one of the great artists of our day, one of the great personalities, whether she hosts anything. Susan Graham, thank you so much. Such a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in the Opera Center for another conversation on March 20th with Larry Brownlee. But he will certainly have some distance to go to be as charming and informative as
He will
Susan
have no
Graham.
trouble at all, trust me.
Again, Susan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody.